Guys, welcome to Sunday Night Roundtable. I'm your host, Jason. It is the NFL post-draft edition. We're all kind of... Oh, see, I clicked a button by mistake. We got videos coming out of nowhere. Like I said, we're all kind of in a daze coming out of this draft weekend. Everybody exhausted, but everybody had a great weekend. George, how you doing this evening?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. It's been a relaxing weekend. Actually, half approval of my Dolphins draft. The more people are talking about it and telling me things I didn't realize and things I didn't know. Educating me more than what I was. The draft was not a bad draft for the Dolphins at all. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but doing good. NFL draft weekend's come and gone. Tomorrow, 4:30 starts. The comp picks are no longer affected by free agent signings. So if the Dolphins or any of your teams go out and sign a player after 4:00 tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, because that is the only standard time that we actually recognize here at Toilets to Titles, then it doesn't count against your comp picks. So those will be locked in place, which they typically are Monday after the draft. So everything is going good. Everything is going fantastic.
Well, that was a lot for how you doing. So I'll turn it over to Justin, see if he wants to read us War and Peace episode of the show.
He's going to read the Art of War.
I'm good.
It was the best. It was the best of the times. It was the worst of times.
No, I had a busy weekend. Recorded Friendly Fire on Friday night. That dropped Saturday morning. You guys need to go back and check that because we talked Orioles baseball with Cam Bryce, and at about the 5-minute and 40-second mark, there's some paranormal activity crap that goes on that I cannot explain. I can't figure it out. I don't know what happened. Pretty freaky, weird stuff. So go back and check that out. And then last night, of course, we recorded the Fun Day Draft Show, where we recorded our favorite sports movies of all time. You can go on Twitter at Toilets to Titles to vote on that. George and I have so I guess you could call it tight race for second place, even though he has twice as many. Well, we're still both single digits, so second place is still up for grabs. Jason paid off like hundreds of voters to go in and vote for just him. Sorry, Eli, you're not going back to Orlando for several more months because he paid to win this draft. And then now here I am with you guys. So a whole lot of recording for me this weekend. Back to school tomorrow. So just enjoying this one last evening with you fine fellas.
What was cool is I believe Jason was quoted as saying, "My favorite child, my daughter Tori, helped me get a whole bunch of votes." I think that was the quote he sent us in the text. I'm not 100% sure. Eli, you might want to check his phone.
I thought he was saying that she helped him cook dinner. For those that aren't already aware, Rival Fantasy is the newest evolution in fantasy sports. Rival's all-in-one fantasy platform has changed the fantasy sports landscape. From fantasy bingo, where you mark off boxes of achievements that your players accomplish on the field, to season-long and best ball leagues, to mock drafts and challenges, and more. They have the perfect user-friendly website and app for you. So send a challenge to your friend or send a challenge to your rival and tell them to put their money where their mouth is. But your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link, joinrival.com/titletribe. That's joinrival.com/titletribe.
Anyway, so I won't have anybody saying I love one of my children above another one. Or we will.
I mean, that's what you said. It wasn't us. We're just repeating what you said.
Listen, I will throw up as many ads as I can while we do that. No, I did have my daughter help me cook dinner. She's 17. She's going to be out on her own sooner rather than later, and figured it need to get her in the kitchen as much as possible to help. So when she does go out on her own, she's not going out every night. She can make a few decent meals for herself and maybe for whoever she roommates with. So we've been cooking a lot more now that she's got her college exams behind her. So
nice.
All right. So one thing I do want to mention, Justin in that ad there talked about rival, but I do want to talk about our Gilded chat. You can go to Gilded. We have 200 people talking about football all the time. We're getting into dynasty draft season. Because the draft is over, I've already got a couple leagues itching to draft. So you can go in there. You can ask your dynasty questions where you think the rookies should go, or if you have a dynasty startup where the rookies should be at. We're in there all the time. We're super accessible. And to get into our Gilded chat, you just email toiletstitles@gmail.com. Justin or Coach will get you into the Gilded chat, and you can come hang out with us. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, our Patreon-only Dynasty League is drafting live on air this next Saturday, so 6 days from today at 9 p.m. So you all can hop on YouTube right here and watch it's rookie-only Dynasty draft. We did the startup a couple months ago. So for those of you that are planning on those drafts, like Jason was just talking about, you're welcome to watch our live version, not a mock, an actual draft. 7, not practice, an actual mock draft or actual draft.
Practice, not the game, 7, not the game, but practice.
7 rounds IDP, rookies only.
Next Saturday is May the 4th, so I do expect some kind of Star Wars theme from you. Just throwing that out there.
Nah, I don't get into Star Wars. That's why we still haven't done a Star Wars Fun Day draft, even though I've promised you that a few times. I'll keep promising. We will do it eventually. It's on the list. I just keep pushing it back.
I'm going to have the flu for that draft.
Yeah, it might be one I missed.
I am a shoo-in. To win that one. All right, so we do want to get into the news. There isn't that much news except for the draft, which we'll be talking about here shortly. But Tank Dell did get shot in a nightclub in Sanford. He went to the hospital, got out already. I see a finger going up, George.
Justin, what's your opinion on this whole incident?
My opinion is that it wasn't the same finger I gave you a moment ago in the green screen. As I've been busy working outside all day, so I had no clue that this had even happened, and you guys surprised me with it. But I will say right out the gate, with Stephon Diggs coming over, he's already a bit of a wild card when it comes to his personality. I'm not saying he's a young guy. Tank Dell's a young guy. He deserves to be going out to the clubs, partying. It's the off season. He's probably still putting in the work. I'm not saying anything like that, but I am saying that when bullets are flying and that gets involved, you at least have to stop and think, maybe we slow down this offseason, Tank, give it a little bit of time. So hopefully it doesn't become like a normal, consistent thing. We met him at the Senior Bowl 2 years ago. Super, super nice guy. This isn't his personality, so don't hear what I'm not saying. But at the same time, with one crazy personality already in that wide receiving locker room right now, let's just hope that it was just a one-off.
Well, it sounds like it was this.
Go ahead, George. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It sounds like
you're both going to say the same thing.
No, I was going to say it sounds like it was a scuffle, not involving Tank at all, and it was like a mass shooting. 10 people got shot. It's funny because you read, I read the news story, and it said the security guard says that he brought down the shooter almost immediately, and it's like, man, if you got 10 shots off, almost immediate is really subjective.
Yeah,
10 people got shot, but I took him down right away.
Imagine if he didn't have a gun, all he had was knives. He would have been 40, right? Oh, wait, my bad. Let's not make it political. My fault.
No, don't make it. Stop it. Stop.
Allegedly, there was actually 2 shooters. That's why there were so many people shot. It was a gang shooting. Tank Dell, he was an innocent bystander. One of the shooters was 16 years old. Probably should not have been in the nightclub. Probably should not have been out that late at night. Everything that he should not have been doing, he was doing. All indications are it was a targeted shooting between rivals. Tank Dell, let's focus back on him. He's fine. He's already been released from the hospital. They're saying it's minor injuries, no suspected long-term damage. He'll be fine to start the season. So from football perspective, fantasy football perspective, Everything is fine. I really thought that when Justin was talking about Stephon Diggs and his personality, he was going to imply that maybe Stephon Diggs was the shooter or something. I really thought that's what you were going with. I'm just sitting back like, he's not going to do this. Please tell me to God he's not going to. He's going there. He's going there.
He's trying to guarantee at least a 25% target share.
Hey,
so
look who we got.
Listen,
Get the babies to bed.
David is on the show.
Ish.
He must have said, "Honey, you're on baby duty. We got to talk draft."
Yeah, I just told her. I said, "Hey, wait." Earlier when you said, "Oh, it's okay, we'll do it every 2 weeks again," I was like, "Oh, that means next week." And then I saw that you guys were going live in a few minutes, and I'm like, I must have misunderstood. We have them laid down. They'll probably wake up in the next hour or so for their next feeding. So she said that if they wake up, I do have to leave. But she said I could hop on because she knew I wanted to talk about the draft.
It's so nice she had you on a long leash. Yeah, we talked back and forth about it. We were initially going, yeah, maybe we can skip it, but then we thought, well, it's the weekend after the draft. If we can get a couple of people, we should get on. So, also, there's some information in the chat. And look, this is Noah. Hi, I'm from England, and as I has a debate because we obviously don't have guns and got rid of them. No shootings, less murders. Ta-da, now debate. We're not doing that debate, and also,
that's why you lost the war.
And then at BFTG Jason, no. So I'm the one that would agree with you. So you probably shouldn't debate with me, but one of these other gentlemen for sure, it's fine. And then we got some eyes, and then my son reminding everyone, no political content. Activity should be mentioned in a football draft. And I think he meant Justin and not Joe, since Justin started it.
It's okay though. I've been called worse.
Okay. So
by the guys on this panel.
Daily.
All right. The only other news I pulled, and it's because he was a first rounder, and that's the only reason why it's a big deal at all. Former first round pick Mekhi Becton is signing a 1-year prove-it deal for up to $5.5 million with the Eagles. Seems like a pretty low risk, high reward kind of signing for the Eagles. I mean, he was really terrible.
Over or under 7 games played next year.
What happens when we get to 3, Eli? Type that in. I'm worried. I'm sweating.
Over
under what, George?
7 games played. Mekhi Becton.
7. We'll go 7.5.
Come on! Don't root for an injury. I'm going to go over.
I'm not rooting for an injury. The dude just does not stay healthy. He just does not stay healthy. I'm not rooting for injuries. I'm not saying that I want to see him injured. I'm just saying he never is healthy.
And then Noah said, just winding y'all up, forgetting humor is a bit different. Y'all don't seem to have that type of political that we don't seem that. Well, that's okay, Noah, because you don't seem like you're that funny. So no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I mean, Noah's watching. You know, I'm joking, buddy. We can handle the humor around here. I enjoyed your question. And in any other setting where my son wasn't admonishing us for talking politics, I would be happy to get into that debate. I'd love it.
We have a few times.
keep winding us up for sure, Noah. I enjoy it. All right, so that's what I have for news. We're going to get into the draft. We're going to talk winners and losers. I want to see what each of y'all think about what your team did. We want to talk about, we want to make fun of Rich's team a little bit. Fairburn. There you go. It's not that you're not funny. It's that English people in general are not funny.
No, but they are so much more smart and educated.
They just sound that way, Justin. Hold on, stop. They just sound like they're smarter and more educated. They're not really.
If you would let me finish a sentence once in a while, that's what I was about to say. But that's fine. Go ahead. You keep being an American down there.
Dude, they put beans on toast.
George is the reason I have to put
that.
George is the reason I have to put a Canadian flag on my backpack when I go to Europe.
All right, let's do this thing.
All right. Well, let's get into each of your teams first, because that's what everybody wants to hear, how you guys feel about your teams, and not in general. So, Justin, I'll start with you. I know you were hoping for a tight end, but he was taken before he got to you. So, how are you feeling about the Colts draft?
Yeah, I wasn't just hoping for a tight end. I was hoping for the tight end. Obviously, Brock Bowers would make a world of difference on this team. I get what people are going to say. You look at our roster, you see like 17 different tight ends on there, and you see that several of them have had like some possible projected promise, I guess, at some point in their careers or even in college. But none of them have panned out. They are all at best as a backup tight end if they play on any other team. And Brock Bowers not only would have solidified that position, but he's versatile. He could play at the slot. He could play. He can block a lot better than any of the tight ends that we currently have on the roster. But after Bowers, if they weren't going to get him and he went the pick before the Colts, then I'm perfectly fine with them not taking a tight end the rest of the draft, because in my opinion, these tight ends are going to take time to mold anyway after Bowers. So whatever, we'll just continue to get punished at the position. I do not like the risk that Ballard has taken here recently in the last 2 years. He took Anthony Richardson last season with the 4th pick, and I don't understand how Colts fans are so amped up about the Anthony Richardson return for him to come back and leave. Okay, last season he left early in 4 of the 5 games he played, and he left the season way early because of that shoulder injury. And it's the same shoulder that he's had injuries with 4 times in the last 6 years now. The guy's not going to stay healthy. Quit getting excited about it. So the good news is that this draft really didn't matter, and it's not going to matter until they finally give up on that experiment. But since that was such a high risk pick last year, I did not want to see huge high risk picks at the top of the draft this year. They went with Adonai Mitchell in the 2nd round. Super wonderful talent. Don't get me wrong, huge talent. But if what they say about his diabetes is true, and that's the reason for the inconsistency on the field, I don't trust the Colts medical staff to help keep him and his head straight to be able to keep his sugar right, because I've seen what the Colts medical staff has done to all of our special skill players over the last several years. And then Latu, coming off of that neck injury, like there's a reason he was dropping in everybody else's big boards except for yours, Chris Ballard. It's because of that neck injury. So no, I'm not super stoked about the first couple picks. They are high upside, but so was Anthony Richardson, and we see what happened there, and we're going to continue to see what happens with this stuff. But the rest of their draft, actually, I kind of agreed with it. I kind of liked it. You got the depth at the safety that we really need. You got, in my opinion, Anthony Gold in the 5th round out of Oregon State at wide receiver was a really good value. The offensive tackle they got out of Pittsburgh, that Matt guy. I can't remember his last name, but he offensive tackle. He's a versatile guy. He can play guard. The Chris Ballard is saying that he thinks that he could probably even move him to center if he needs to. That's going to be a depth piece. Our offensive line did improve back again last season, so to see him get a versatile guy for that depth piece and not expect him to come in and be a starter right away, but to learn underneath a really good offensive line, that's smart. That's great. That kind of safety net type of picks is what we should have went with in the first 2 rounds as well. But other than that, the talent is there. He definitely picked talent and the best talent available at the time. So you can't really fault him, I guess, for trying to go and get his guys. It's just definitely not what I would have done in those first 2 rounds.
David, I'm going to let you go next in case the babies wake up. I want to get you on the record about the Steelers draft. How are the Steelers?
I mean, I love the Steelers drafts. We have a proven record of getting these late, second, third round receivers, and they're, they perform like first round receivers. And being a Michigan fan, I'm super happy that Roman Wilson is the one we took. Definitely makes me happy there. I do think we still need to be in the Ayuk talks. We need somebody more
Proven.
What's the word I'm picking up?
Skilled.
Proven. Possibly that too. I mean, but and then take it 2 offensive linemen first and another one later down the board. That was definitely one of our biggest weaknesses last year. Get whoever is going to be quarterback protected. I'm happy with it. I was excited about it from the gate. Fatanu was a great pickup at 20. I mean, he was probably the third, maybe even the second on some people's boards I saw tackle in the class. So grabbing him at 20 was fantastic. And then Zach Frazier being to me, or some people had him as their top center, and picking him up, I think we were 54th or something, was fantastic.
George, I saw you shaking your head over there.
Yeah, I wanted the Dolphins to draft Fatanu. And so for him to go one pick right before the Dolphins pick, that kind of hurt. That was the guy I had circled who I wanted the Dolphins to draft. I should have seen that Roman Wilson was going to get drafted by the Steelers. I got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl this year, and I posted the clip on my Twitter. You can find it at George Reed FF on Twitter. And he was talking. I asked him, what he thought about Mike Tomlin and what was Mike Tomlin talking to him about. Have they had any interviews with the Steelers? And he said, yeah, he's talked to the Steelers twice, and that Mike Tomlin told him that he needed to quit playing around and that he wanted him to line up against Quinyon Mitchell, who was widely considered one of the top 2 DBs in this draft class. And not only did Roman Wilson line up against Quinyon Mitchell, they lined up against each other in 1-on-1 drills and 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 the entire day. Like, Quinyon Mitchell shadowed him the entire day. And Roman Wilson was still that guy that day. He looked absolutely phenomenal. He is one of my favorite later round receivers in this draft. I say later round, but second, third round, outside the top, 4 or 5 consensus wide receivers. So I do have to agree. Unfortunately, the Steelers didn't have a good draft. It is what it is. They sniped my guy. They took a guy I like, so I can't help but say I like their draft.
All right. Well, so I do want to hear what you have to say about Miami, but first I want to go back to Noah because, we called him unfunny and said the whole English people were unfunny, and the one thing he really took exceptions was us making fun of beans on toast. So,
which I don't understand that hate right there. I mean, beans are great. Toast is great. That sounds delicious. And if you butter the toast, then you get the buttered beans too.
Yeah, but that doesn't work with everything. I mean, steak is great and ice cream is great, but I'm not sticking ice cream on my steak.
Well, then you don't know if you're not doing it.
I'm gonna have to tell Dean we're having beans with toast tomorrow,
and I'm gonna have steak with ice cream.
And both of you guys can move to England where that shit is acceptable.
I did find.
Cheerio.
I will say
Eli.
that at Walmart there is a mac and cheese ice cream.
There is, and by the way, it has to be. And Noah, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. It has to be baked beans on the toast. It can't be butter beans or red beans or anything like that. The typical British entree is baked beans on toast.
Screw it. Make it green beans. I don't care. Beans are good.
I was just about to pull that up. I apologize, Eli.
There are kids watching.
All right, so George, why don't you get into Miami's draft while I look up what kind of beans go on toast?
It's baked beans, I'm telling you. Just take my word for it.
I'm sure it is.
It absolutely is. Miami's draft. So Jason and I went and watched the draft together, and I wasn't overly thrilled with our first round selection. It was definitely a pick of need with Chop Robinson. We have two very talented edges. Both got injured. Both missed the playoff game last year and the end of the season, really, with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. So definitely needed to address the edge position. I thought the bigger need was to address the offensive line, but the Dolphins went out and they drafted one of the most athletic edges in the entire draft in Chop Robinson. His first step is just fast as can be. His overall offensive metrics are all like 95 percentile or better. So he is an absolute athlete and a stud. His college numbers doesn't really reflect how good he was. Like if you look at it, he had like 9.5 sacks the last 2 years, which is really not an impressive number. But like J.J. Watt had 9.5 sacks the last 2 years he was in college. Sacks don't really tell the whole story with the player. When we drafted him, I was a little bit more enamored with the numbers than taking a deeper dive. We addressed tackle in the second round with Patrick Paul. Not overly thrilled with that. That's going to be a project. I wanted somebody to come in right away to work on the offensive line, perhaps be an offensive guard. This is another guy. He's super athletic. He's just a big man. He's like 6'7", 340 pounds or something like that. He's just a big overall dude who is extremely athletic, but he's a project, and we don't need a project right now because we're in a very tight window to say quote unquote win now. So I wanted us in our first 2 rounds to at least get an impact player that would be an impact right away. We traded up into the 5th round for Jalen Wright. Apparently, if your name is Jalen, and you're fast, there's a really good chance you're going to get drafted to the Dolphins. We got Jalen Waddle, Jalen Wright, Jalen Ramsey. We have all of the Jalens. They're all on our team. So there's like 4 Jalens. What I like about this pick at the running back position is we've got Raheem Mostert, wrong side of 30. Yes, they just extended him. He had a fantastic year last year, but he is on the wrong side of 30. Has a history of not being able to complete the season. And with Jalen Wright, he's probably the best pass blocker in the entire draft for running backs. So that's definitely a need, and he's fast as can be. I think he ran like a 4.38 or something like that. So just more speed for the Dolphins. And I'm not going to get too involved in our last couple of picks. We took another edge. 2 wide receivers, Taj Washington and Malik Washington. So apparently we're getting all the Washingtons and all the Jalens down in Miami.
That was a book. Look, I was with you when they took Chop Robinson, and part of the reason why you're disappointed is because then that left the Buccaneers the guy you actually wanted, which was Graham Barton, who I think was a steal in the first round as late as they got him. I think he'll probably play center for the Buccaneers. That'll move Hainsey back out and fix one of the guard spots. It fixed 2 positions for the Buccaneers on the offensive line. And if that wasn't bad enough, they drafted a guy in the 6th round, Elijah Klein, and PFF had him as their highest rated run blocker last year, which is crazy to get somebody like that in the 6th round. Small school guy. I didn't say Hainsey, I said Hainsey. But that's okay, Justin. So for the Buccaneers draft, Marshawn Nealon went 1 pick right before the Buccaneers selected. He was a guy I was looking at for the Buccaneers. Then they turned around and drafted Chris Braswell, who I've got to admit I didn't know a ton about. Played for Alabama. Alabama defenders probably pretty good. But then after the draft, like we all do, we Google the guys we don't know a ton about and read some good things. Tyke Smith, we needed safety depth, but I think he'll probably play nickel. Jalen McMillan out of Washington, I think he's a good wide receiver who got hurt last year, but before that he was running with their other wide receivers who went earlier. So I like having him as a third wide receiver. Okay, and quit trying to corrupt my son, guys, in the chat.
What? No, I was explaining that's what that means. He's got good hand and footwork.
And then they take a running back, Bucky Irvin, and I think that's going to be one of the themes of what we talk about for the rest of the draft as well. I think it's a good landing spot for Bucky. I think after watching some tape on him, I'm pretty excited to see what he can do. I do think it's going to hurt Rachaad White, which is a theme of like where all these running backs went. Nobody thought the running backs were great, but I do think a lot of running backs got drafted in positions to hurt the running backs in front of them. So, for example, as George just talked about, they drafted a running back, that's going to take A-Chain's hype and knock it down. Blake Corum going to the Rams is really going to hurt at what everybody thinks of Kyron Williams after what he did last year as the sole running back. Like it just like there's just a lot of these guys where we all thought that the talent wasn't there for them to be first or second rounders, and now where they end up landing, they just hurt all of our dynasty goodness. Go ahead, Justin.
I have a theory about your running back situation there with Rachaad White. Last offseason, you and I talked at the Expo in Canton about how we were going to be able to get Rachaad White for pretty cheap because everybody was underrating him. And you and I both took him in a lot of spots, and it paid off. I feel like the drafting of a 5th round running back does just enough to scare people into us being able to get him cheaper again. And then we're still going to get close to the same amount of production. I'm not too worried about a Bucky Irving or whatever you're calling this guy in the 5th round. Like, I'm sure he's going to spell him. He's going to give him a little bit of break. But is it the 4th round?
4th round. Yeah, they had 2 third-round picks, so he was a 4th rounder.
Oh. Well, it's late 4th round, whatever. But still, even if it was a really good running back in the 3rd round and they were just going to be splitting carries, like you're going to get him at a huge discount. And I still think that you're going to get a big payout for the round you're going to be able to draft him in. If we're talking redraft, if we're talking dynasty, yeah, this is kind of a slap in the nuts, but we'll take it for redraft.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like for redraft, for sure. For dynasty, I can see Bucky. Like they're similar, right? Like Bucky was. I'll just call him Buck Irving because he's a Buck now. I think he had the most receptions of any running back in college last year. He had over 50.
Dylan Labe had over 70.
Had over how many? I'm sorry.
70.
Okay. Well,
Dylan Labe,
so up there. Up there anyway. So, he does a lot of what Rachaad White, and that's the other reason why I wasn't a fan of that pick initially, is because he's a similar guy, even though he's shorter in stature. I wanted a big bruiser to go up the middle instead of what they picked. So that pick for me wasn't great, but Ninja Turtle JFA, I'm rooting for him. Well, yeah, me too. He's on my team now. I got to root for him. So, listening to him talk, watching his videos, like I'm hyped to see him on the field. He seems like a guy who doesn't go down easily, makes a lot of guys miss, and open, and has good speed without the top end. So he gets caught from behind a little bit, but he knows how to break a tackle. So I like what I saw after I started watching it. It just wasn't kind of the style I was hoping they would take, but overall, we filled a bunch of positions in need, seemingly got value all over the board. So I'm pretty happy with the Buccaneers draft without having, they were one of the teams that didn't make any trades. They didn't trade up, they didn't trade back, they didn't get more picks, they didn't lose picks. Like they just kind of stayed pat and got their guys where they got them. So overall, I was pretty happy. Go ahead, Justin. I think your finger went up.
Oh, I was just adjusting my earpiece, but I will say, since we have a comment here, you kind of hoped that this kind of crap with the Patriots was going to end when Belichick left. But unfortunately, it looks like they're rolling in the same direction with their wide receiver pick. So hate to see that if you're a New England fan, but love to see it as a Colts fan.
Yeah, Jalen Polk was not a guy I had in any of our discussions prior to this as somebody that would be taken in the 2nd round. I know we talked about Mitchell dropping because of his diabetes. And maybe that's why they decided not to take him. But man, I'm with you there. It's like you said, when Bill Belichick left, you thought maybe their wide receiver issues would go out the window, and maybe that means this kid has a chance. But I wasn't. But it's definitely not somebody that was on my radar.
You know who the number one team was who drafted the most offensive players in the draft?
The most what?
Offensive players in the draft.
Chicago.
They're tied. They have Chicago listed at number 2. They got New England as number 1. New England spent the most. New England and Chicago tied. They spent the most draft capital of anybody in the league on the offense, and subsequently they spent the 32nd and 30th. Chicago's 30th and New England's 32nd draft capital on the defense. So while New England, their wide receiver core is still the worst probably in the league, they did a lot to address the offensive side of the ball in total, according to Warren Sharp and Sharp Football.
Yeah, sorry about that, Eli. I should have called them bollocks since we have an Englishman on, a distinguished Englishman. They call them bollocks or the family jewels. I apologize.
Yeah, so it makes sense for the Patriots and the Bears to do that, right? They went out and got their quarterbacks. So, the Patriots in specific got 2 wide receivers and took some offensive linemen. So you want to protect your young quarterback and give him some weapons. Again, picking the right ones notwithstanding, but you do want to give your new talent someone to throw to, especially because that cupboard in New England was bare. And 2 quarterbacks too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very Patriots thing to do, right?
Have you seen their quarterback core? Of course, they needed 2 quarterbacks.
Javon Baker is honestly, I'm more interested in Javon Baker than I am at Polk. Coming out of UCF, he is actually a wide receiver I got to see play a little bit because he's on locally. I'm a little more excited about that than I am about Polk, and you got him a couple rounds later. So at least you got some talent late. For me, that's not a bad thing. I do want to talk. Okay, go ahead, George.
I do like the fact that the because I want to stick with the Patriots for a second. That they drafted Joe Milton. They drafted him in the 6th round, 193 overall, and got to watch him at the Senior Bowl this year. His decision making is not the greatest. His accuracy is not the greatest, but the kid has an absolute cannon of an arm. I mean, the ball comes out with a ton of velocity when he throws it, and he is athletic. He can move around. He does remind me a lot of Josh Allen when he was coming out. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Josh Allen, but I think that they took him so late. If they decide to coach him up a little bit and trade him in a year or 2, they could probably get a decent return on that draft capital that they spent on him.
Well, anybody whose nickname is, because I'm looking at it now, is Bazooka Joe.
Yeah,
nice.
That is a guy I want to see. I want to see that
when he and David could probably backs up when he throws the ball. It's like the ball comes out of his hand so fast with such velocity. Like it's quite impressive. He can chuck the rock. That's one thing he absolutely can do.
Yeah, it was fun watching him at the combine too. I mean, he was just waiting for them to get down the field, and then just a flick of the wrist, and it was 60, 70 yards. I mean,
effortless, completely effortless.
If he could actually throw it to the wide receiver on a consistent basis, he'd be all right.
Yeah, you'd have something.
Go on Twitter and look up Dov Kleiman.
Dov Kleiman, I can't stand that guy. I got him blocked.
Okay, well, it's at NFL_Dolph Kleiman. And after you watch this video, support George and block him. But watch this video first. And it's got Joe Milton on there throwing the ball around in some office space with just random people. And he rockets this ball at this guy that looks like he's about 5'5", 125 pounds. And the guy just jumps out of the way. He's like, no.
All right, we should get into the quarterbacks. We can easily talk about the surprise of the draft. We'll do that in a minute. We talked about Spencer Rattler a lot last show, and now I'm never going to talk about him again. I'll let you guys talk about him. He went to the Saints, which I think is a great landing spot for him, but it just means I have to hate him now. But I think that was a good pick for them. You know, he's got Carr in front of him, so it'll give him time to develop. But then behind that, playing for the Saints is not a bad thing. Guys, what do you think about the Spencer Rattler pick, and why are the Saints a horrible, horrible team?
It's a 4th-round pick, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter because Carr's still going to be around for at least a couple more years, and by then they'll have a good feeling for Spencer, and they still have time to draft another guy. That contract isn't guaranteed being the 4th round, at least not for very long. So he's just a body at this point, which is sad because he had such promise a couple years ago. But that's the game, I guess.
Nobody else. Of course, we're going to talk about Michael Penix Jr. getting taken by the Falcons. I wanted to see who would talk about Rattler first.
What is there to say? So there's, and this is probably can lead into the Michael Penix talk if you want, but being at the Senior Bowl, I got to watch Spencer Rattler, I got to watch Michael Penix, and I got to watch Bo Nix. And I can honestly say the quarterbacks there this year were not very impressive. Like I was stunned. Not only did Michael Penix go in the 1st round, but so did Bo Nix, because I don't see that. Those 2 selections, and I said it on Twitter after I was able to collect myself, pick my jaw up off the ground, and realize that what I just seen really, really, really actually just happened. Those moves are how GMs and coaches get fired. Like, those are both 3rd round grade quarterbacks. Those are not quarterbacks that should have been going in the top 12. I think Denver completely panicked when Michael Penix went. I think they really wanted Michael Penix, but they think they're looking at everybody ahead of them, and they're like, okay, Drake May, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels. Okay, we understand we're probably not going to get any of them to fall to us, but nobody in their right freaking mind is taking Michael Penix, before 12. And sure enough, in comes Atlanta, and after giving Kirk Cousins $140 million in a 3-year deal with all this guaranteed money. Hey, let me take this guy who's 24 coming in. He'll be 27, possibly 28 by the time he actually gets an opportunity to start without Kirk Cousins being on the team. Like, that's how GMs and coaches get fired. That was for all the praise we've lobbed onto Atlanta and what Raheem Morris has been doing there. Like that, I don't know if I can blame Morris or if I blame the GM. I don't know who to blame. Maybe it's Arthur Smith. Maybe he made the call for them. I don't know. But that was just an absolute horrible pick. Like, just atrocious.
I don't know, man. Like there was a video of the GM explaining what had just happened to Arthur Smith after it happened. Arthur Smith didn't seem like he was in on it either, because there was a full-on conversation going on. And not for nothing, but Arthur Smith's an old dude and wants to see his team win. Like, I don't think he's in this to see his 1st-round pick go to a quarterback that's going to sit for 3 years.
So there is an argument to be had, though, with Kirk Cousins being there and coming off of the injury that he had. Like, he may not be ready for the start of the season. And in that division, sorry, Jason, with that division being up in the air for anybody to take at a 500 record or maybe just a game or two above 500, you can't afford to lose even just a few games. It shouldn't have been Penix, because that's what I call him. I will always call him Penix ever since he was with IU. That's the more fitting name. Also, just so that we know who we're talking about here, this is the guy that got recruited to play for IU, right? IU's football team at that. So he's not a golden boy. I don't understand why you felt like you had to spend such a high pick on him. Don't get me wrong. But I at least understand the process here in that they want a guy that's going to be ready now. You also don't know how Cousins is going to come back off of the injury. Maybe he's not going to be worth all that money that you're giving him, and you're going to have to eat it after a couple of years and move on without him. This gives him an opportunity over the next couple of years to get ready, and then if he's ready or not. But I agree with you guys. They should have waited until the second round, or they should have traded back. But at the same time, I mean, maybe they couldn't find somebody to trade back, and they didn't like what they saw with JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix, and so they felt like they had to take it. Where since the quarterbacks were going high, maybe they had to. I don't know.
I feel like they forced the quarterbacks to go high, because I don't think the Broncos would have taken Bo Nix 12th if Michael Penix was still there. They would have let the Raiders, if the Raiders wanted to jump on one, take one, and then have their pick later on, like, whoever was left, which would have still been Bo Nix, but they could have gotten him later. But the Falcons also picked before either of those teams in the second round. They totally could have waited till the second round and still gotten Michael Penix right there at, I think, the 35th pick. Because the Broncos wouldn't have thought, oh, the Falcons are going after a quarterback, let's jump above them. Neither would the Raiders. They could have gotten the same guy. The other thing I saw was they're not just worried about Kirk Cousins as far as coming in and being able to play right away. They're also kind of comparing it to the Jordan Love situation and getting a quarterback. They think that their team is good enough right now that they're not going to be in a position to draft a quarterback this high again over the next several years. So they want a guy who's going to sit for a few years, learn from a pro, and then be NFL ready like Jordan Love was.
Little do they know the Falcons.
So I do buy the idea that they're not going to be the 8th pick if Kirk Cousins comes in and plays well. But but instead of doing what they just did, maybe give them another weapon. Or their pass rush has been awful since God was a baby. They haven't had a pass rush in a decade. No defensive players had gone off the board. They could have had their pick of the litter, and they could have made that defense better so you don't have to score as many points. I don't know. It just screams of like a bad decision. Yeah, God was that's true. That's true. Eli was a baby a decade ago. But I do think that, listen, bad move by a team that makes questionable decisions. If they were worried about health, like, of Kirk Cousins that much, it was 3 weeks ago, right? 4 weeks ago that they gave Kirk Cousins that contract. It's not like it was that long ago. So now you give him that contract. You didn't do your due diligence before giving him $180 million, including to do it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it just seems like a terrible, terrible move. It had been rumored that Bo Nix was hanging out with Denver a whole lot, that Peyton really liked Bo Nix. I do think they would have taken him in the second round and not the first if the Falcons hadn't made the surprise move. That did force Denver's hand, because now all of a sudden they feel like Bo Nix wouldn't be there in the second round, because he might not have been. You might have had the Raiders freak out about it and have Bo Nix there and take him. So it's definitely possible that the Falcons forced the Broncos into it way early. But man, what a bad set of dominoes for them, and great for every team behind them, because that just left value on the board for every team behind them. George, go ahead and get your finger up.
Yeah, the couple things I can say nice about Bo Nix, like critiquing his quarterback ability. It's easy to do because, like I said, he's not a first round graded quarterback. Like, I don't think anybody outside of Denver had him graded in the first round. He's just not. He doesn't have the arm. He's not mobile. Like you want to have a quarterback who does something on the field at a high level, a very high level where, up here, if you're taking him in the first 12 picks, right? Like you want him to have some type of a trait, whether it be his accuracy, arm strength, ability to run the ball. Peyton Manning, he had a great arm, but his knowledge, like him being able to read the defense and know what they were doing, like on the field, and be that coach on the field, like that it was a head and shoulders above everybody else. Bo Nix does not have any of those personality traits. He doesn't have any of those physical traits. The couple things I will say about watching him on the field at the Senior Bowl, he was able to, and it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I'm comparing Peyton Manning on the field IQ to Bo Nix. They're not even comparable. They're not. But he was able to take command on the field and tell the wide receivers who he had only been there for, practicing a couple of days with, hey, this is the route you're supposed to run. Hey, no, I need you over here. No, I want you to over here. Okay, no, flipping the running back in the background. Like those little intangibles he did have, but it's not nearly at the level of what a Peyton Manning had coming out. It's well below that. But those little things, coaches like, the way he would run up and high five a teammate after a play on the field. None of the other quarterbacks were doing that. But like if his wide receivers made a play, he'd be one of the guys running over to them to give him a high five. Always running up to the running back, help the running back, get up off the ground. Like the quarterback's doing that, not a lineman, not a receiver, the quarterback doing that. So that he does have some leadership traits, but yeah, that's really like the arm talent, the athletic ability is just not there with him.
I got a question for the quarterbacks. Who has the best year this first year, this rookie season out of the quarterbacks?
Joe's going to be happy. I'm going to say Jaden Daniels.
Oh, really?
Yep. And from a fantasy perspective, yes. I
think Caleb Williams. I think he's set up for success. Three stud wide receivers, a good running game. A defense that can hold some teams, maybe get some turnovers. It's very chalk to say, but I think Caleb Williams. It wouldn't surprise me if J.J. McCarthy didn't have a great season either, though, because he's got weapons all over the place. But Caleb Williams, I think,
for me, it's between McCarthy and Caleb Williams for me, and I think it kind of feels a lot like, now I understand that he's set up better than most of the other guys were this year. Caleb Williams is, but the Bears also historically suck at coaching up quarterbacks. Yep. So the best one else this year, it feels like Mac Jones in his first season, where I said that year that he had the best situation for that year. I was not saying he was the best out of those quarterbacks, but that season he would have the best season out of those quarterbacks. Nowhere did I think he was better than Trevor Lawrence. I know he's not, which is kind of funny because now he's backing Trevor Lawrence up. But I knew he would have. I said at the beginning of the season he would have the better season there, and I'm kind of getting the same feeling from JJ, and it might be a little biased because I am a Michigan fan, but I just feel like he got stuck in a perfect situation if he does start right away. And that's the only question there, because they do have Sam Darnold. There is rumors that they're going to let him sit a little and let him get comfortable, but
who doesn't want that? JJ. So yeah, Eli says he's going to bed. It is getting late. We do want to move into some wide receiver talk, and then we're going to close this thing out. I did want to hit this for sure. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to hit this for sure. Zach Wilson or Nix to start. Listen, all I can say is you better hope it's Zach Wilson starting, because you don't want him on the bench, because Bo Nix's mom is still alive.
I'm going to say it's Zach Wilson.
Justin?
I got it. I'm going Bo Nix, but honestly, it's just because you want to go with what you know over what you don't know. And even though we don't know about Bo Nix, we do know about Zach Wilson. So going with what we do know is enough for me to say Bo Nix.
See, I'm not convinced. I do agree. I think Bo Nix as well. But again, Zach Wilson was in an offense that none of the quarterbacks who took over there whenever they benched Wilson looked any better than Wilson did. And we'll never know what Aaron Rodgers would have looked like last year. He only played 3 plays, but every quarterback they recycled in there, they all looked terrible. So that might have just been might have been more of a organizational thing than Zach Wilson specifically.
It's very possible, but it's also that all of those quarterbacks were terrible. Like
That's
it's
true.
not. I mean, it's not like there were any names behind Zach Wilson that they put on the field that you go, "Oh, that guy should have been really good."
That goes to speak to the organization because they were inept enough after the 3rd play or 4th offensive play of their season. Their starting quarterback tears his Achilles, and they're so inept that they don't go out and get a quarterback who is competent. And there was plenty of them out there. They Joe Flacco was sitting on the couch, who would have been better than what they had there last year. Like I completely agree. The Jets organization is just right now. It's listen. The defense is phenomenal. They got a defensive minded head coach. That coach can't. He's got the Brian Flores syndrome. He can't coach offense to save his life, but coaching defense, that's his forte. That they're going to lean on the defense, and they did absolutely nothing to help coach up Zach Wilson. And coaching is a huge part in the NFL, and they don't have the coaching staff there to, yes, inept. That describes both the Buffalo Bills organization as well, just so you know. But they did absolutely nothing to help him. Like I still think Zach Wilson is a talented quarterback, and I still think he's better than Bo Nix.
All right. We're going to get into the wide receivers. We had
next week on Sunday Night Live.
Next week, yeah. No, we're not doing next week. We're 2 weeks. We had 7 wide receivers taken in the first round, 4 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers taken in the second round. So Harrison goes to Arizona, no surprise there. Neighbors goes to the Giants. Odunze to Chicago. Those both seemed like they were chalk picks. A lot of people had those. Brian Thomas to Jacksonville, who got to trade back, get some more picks in next year's draft, which was the surprise to me. They didn't get much in this year's draft for the trade back, but they did get a 3rd and 4th next year to trade back. And then the Buffalo Bills traded back and allowed Kansas City to pick up Xavier Worthy. And surprise, Ricky Pearsall goes to San Francisco, and then Carolina trades back into the first round to get Xavier Leggett. Yeah, so let's talk. We don't have to talk about the upper echelon guys. They went to spots we all thought they would go to. I feel a little bit bad for Neighbors because he's got Daniel Jones on the ball. They did, the Giants weren't one of the teams that addressed quarterbacks. Let's get into like Xavier Worthy and that whole thing, because I've read a lot of talk about how the Bills, and I know George said inept, the Bills traded back, let Kansas City come and get this guy. He's a speedster. He is what he is. Look, a lot of these guys in the back end of the first, second round wide receivers end up being a crapshoot anyway. There's a reason why they're not picked at the top of the draft. We've seen speed not kill before. Justin Ross, Jordan Ross, right? What was his name?
John Ross.
The Bengals took John Ross. There you go.
John Ross.
That the Bengals took was super fast, didn't amount to anything. Word of the day, inept. There you go. And I just like, I've seen it with Kansas City. They drafted Mecole Hardman. Who has Kansas City drafted at skill position other than Tyreek Hill that makes you think they went out and got the right guy? And anybody can can answer that question.
Especially at wide receiver. I agree with you completely. Like Xavier Worthy wasn't super high on a lot of people's draft boards before the combine. And then after the combine, all of a sudden he's a late first round pick. like we see it happen all the time. Almost every year, somebody jumps up a round or two just because they had an incredible 40 and then they don't pan out. You have to be able to do more than just run fast. And I know we skipped Brian Thomas. Are you going to go back to him, or if I have something, should I say it now?
No. We'll go back to him for sure.
Okay.
I just one, Brian. I loved Brian Thomas. I do want to talk about Jacksonville taking him. So but this is the one that got the most comments because, and it tied into George saying the Bills were inept, because I heard that a lot, where the Bills traded back out twice and lost out on a couple wide receivers. And I think they ended up taking a guy that's on par with a lot of these, with the players that got taken in front of them. And again, sure, Kansas City might have got the seal of the draft and he's going to Patrick Mahomes, but David, what do you think about Xavier Worthy? What do you think about the whole situation with the Bills?
Firstly, if I'm the Bills, I'm not answering the phone if the Chiefs call anymore. I'm pretty sure that they were the ones who allowed them to trade up to get Patrick Mahomes in the first place.
Yep, they did. They traded back. Yep.
Yeah. So, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me kind of situation. I do believe that all the wide receivers there are right around the same level. And yes, we haven't seen them, the Chiefs, be able to draft a significant wide receiver as of yet. Obviously, Xavier Worthy could prove us all wrong. I also think he was just kind of fast. And I still think the Bills took the wrong receiver. I think they should have went with Ladd McConkey, but
yep.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, the most confusing one to me was actually in that range was Ricky Pearsall. I thought that was a little early for him. There was still, 4, 5, 6 different receivers I had above him at that point, which of course made everybody right away think, oh, they're trading one of their receivers, and then they didn't. So slash the Steelers fan hope of getting Ayuk.
There's still time.
Oh, I'm banking on it. I'm hoping on it because I don't think we go into the season with Roman Wilson and George Pickens as our starting receivers. Actually, according to the depth chart, Roman Wilson is still behind. I don't know, 2 nobodies on our roster.
Yeah, that'll change. George Pickens has good promise, though. I think he's going to be good when he has a quarterback. So I think he's going to have a good ups. He's a wide receiver that I'm targeting in redraft for sure this year because he now has a quarterback, and you're going to get him at value based off of what we've seen the last couple seasons.
So you've got breaks there and say we hope he now has a quarterback. Okay, we don't know which we're getting. We don't know which Justin Fields we're getting. We hope he has a quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be better than what they've had.
Your wide receiver room is George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
So you're hoping
should be above all of them except for Pickens,
and he will be. He absolutely will be.
But you throw Ayuk in there, and that's one of the best trios in the league, in my opinion. So
it's almost as good as Miami's. Not quite, but almost.
Well, who's your third?
We have 2 threes now. No, Washington. So for Miami, it definitely matters. Like you look at the last couple of years, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like they get injured, and then Tyreek, he tends to cramp up in the middle of the game and has to sit out like 8 to 10 plays. And when that happens, like the offense is totally different. Like one of the things that the Dolphins needed was definitely that wide receiver 3. And that's why they were even in talks with Odell Beckham. Like, I don't like Odell Beckham on the team as a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2, but as a wide receiver 3 behind Hill and Waddle, oh yeah, sign me up for that. But no, David took the words literally out of my yes, I will. David literally took the words right out of my mouth when he said that the Bills. No, when he said the Bills drafted the wrong receiver and that they should have gone with Ladd McConkey, who went 1 pick after their selection. Like Ladd McConkey is just a phenomenal. Like he's a route running machine. He is got some of the best hands in this draft class, in my opinion. He's going to be a very good receiver for a long time. The Chargers needed a wide receiver, and they'll be very happy with McConkey over there in Los Angeles. Keon Coleman, not really impressed with him in Buffalo. He's definitely not going to be a Stephon Diggs replacement. I don't think he's got the ceiling to be that level of a wide receiver. And going back to what's his name, Xavier Worthy. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, the Chiefs drafted the next Tyreek Hill." Like, no, there's only one Tyreek Hill. Just because he's fast doesn't mean he's Tyreek Hill. Like, Tyreek Hill is a much better route runner than Xavier Worthy, and he's even faster, I believe, game speed faster than Xavier Worthy. Like, it's one thing to be fast running in shorts. It's another thing to be fast running on a football field in pads. And I think he's faster than Worthy on the field in pads. And the last thing I'll say, then, and I'll let somebody else talk, Ricky Pearsall for the 49ers. I absolutely love that pick. He is very, very much a Brandon Ayuk type wide receiver. The separation that he can get, his route running ability is right up there with Brandon Ayuk. So for them to have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Ricky Pearsall, like, I was hoping Miami would have been able to get Ricky Pearsall in the second round. Unfortunately, he went a lot earlier than even I thought he'd go, but he's a phenomenal wide receiver.
Don't get me wrong about Ricky Pearsall. It wasn't that I was saying that was a bad pick. I just feel like they could have gotten him possibly at the end of the second with where he, or, moved up in the second and gotten somebody else there as opposed to where they got him. He's a great fit for them.
Yeah, we had 7 wide receivers go between picks 23 and 37. Like, there was an absolute run on wide receivers at that point in the draft, and I don't think Pearsall would have made it back to the 49ers pick at the back end of the second round. I absolutely don't think he would have been there. I think he would have been snatched right up. Trade back. That's what I would have done.
So what's funny is the Patriots traded back and lost out on McConkey. The Bills didn't take him when they should have, and I think both teams are going to end up regretting it with who they took. Yep. Justin, I know you wanted to talk about Brian Thomas, so I'm going to give you the floor because that's one guy we haven't talked about at all.
Well, I thought we were going to talk about only Xavier Worthy, so I kept mine only to Xavier Worthy. So if we're going to talk about the other guys, I agree with what you guys said about Pearsall. When it comes to Xavier Legit, though, I didn't have him above even Keon Coleman or Ladd McConkey, but after hearing him talk, he only belongs in the NFC South. So I'm glad Carolina took him. That is the only division that man, he is straight up NFC South. No offense, Jason. But when it comes to Brian Thomas, what I liked about that pick for the Jags, and as a Colts fan, I like to see the Jaguars fail. They did not fail with this one because I feel like before they traded down and they got the pick for next year, along with what they got to get Brian Thomas, they were already wanted Brian Thomas as their wide receiver. And they still got him because he was still the next wide receiver off the board anyway. So I think it was an incredible move for them. Aside from that, definitely Ladd McConkey and with the Clippers and that offense with no other wide receivers there. Like, he's one of the few rookie wide receivers. I guess when I say the few, outside of your top 3, outside of MHJ and Neighbors and Adunze, he's probably the only other one that I'm going to kind of jump way up there in my redraft rankings just from sheer opportunity alone. I love that situation for him.
Yeah, I was going to try and keep it to just talking about 1 or 2 of the wide receivers. George did read us a dissertation, which is fine because it did get us into the conversation.
David did start it with bringing up Ricky Pearsall as well. So to George's credit, it wasn't all him this time.
That's true. And I kept this short. I covered 6 wide receivers in a minute and a half, 2 minutes
each.
I think you forgot how to count time, and I did count 3 or 4 squirts from a water bottle in David's direction. I'm not sure what.
I
That's gotta
apologize.
mean.
I've got a freaking mosquito here the size of George's head that's staring me down. I can't.
This is just from tonight. What are you talking about? That's how much talking I haven't been doing. I've been drinking all this water.
That's I believe that's what you did before the show to warm up your vocal cords. I would have been worried if it
I
was
still got
David
4
with the.
unopened.
I would have been worried if it was David with the squirt bottle squirting off, trying to keep his kids quiet so he can finish talking about. Almost done.
This is for George. I'm trying to get George off of here.
Okay, so I think we covered most of the wide receivers, running backs.
Except for one.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Based on our quarterback play, I'd be willing to say that Roman Wilson could be a top 5 rookie wide receiver this year.
Oh, we're going all the way down on this list. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got to get down to the Washingtons, okay?
I didn't
All the
talk,
Washingtons.
I didn't talk at all about the Bucks pick, and come on, we can't just talk about it because it's our favorite team.
Did anybody else hear that? No?
Hear what?
Okay. All right, cool.
Justin's hearing things. When you get up there in age, you start to hear things.
It's getting late.
Are we
I
doing
get
running
Justin.
backs
I
now?
get it.
Because I got 2 questions about them.
Go ahead, David. Go ahead and open up the running back conversation.
Okay, so firstly, do we have any starting running backs drafted? And secondly, who in the hell is running the ball for the Dallas Cowboys?
Rico Dodwell and Jonathan Brooks. That's all I'm going to say about running backs.
Or whoever they can pick up.
I like our buddy Dylan Laube. I mean, he landed in a perfect spot. I mean, there's not a ton of competition there in Las Vegas. So,
problem is, it was the 6th round. So, if he shows out, he's got a shot there for sure. But it's one of those situations. Dynasty, for example, even if he blows up this year, you're not going to expect him to keep that spot next year just because, they've got no draft capital in him. He's a 6th round guy. But yeah, he's got a shot to play for sure. Go ahead, Justin.
According to Sharp Football Analysis, this has been updated today. So if this is wrong, this is on them. But according to them, Ezekiel Elliott is still the top available free agent running back right now. Just saying.
I made that connection last time we were talking about the Cowboys and the fact that they could bring him back. Now I assume they'd have Brooks as well because I thought they were going to go with him in the 2nd round. I'm
not saying that
Zeke, but
he's not going to fix all of their problems. But you could even they're cheap enough at this point. These running backs would be cheap enough that you could have a Zeke, you could get Dalvin Cook, you could get Cam Akers. Melvin Gordon is still, at least the ghost of Melvin Gordon is still out there. Rashad Penny, there's still bodies out there in a rotation with Dowdle that, they're going to pick somebody up. And running backs are a dime a dozen for the most part. They should have drafted a running back. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's the end of the world to that they didn't get one. It's kind of stupid that they didn't.
Okay, 2 more questions.
Especially.
One, it's slipping my mind where Jonathan Brooks ended up.
Carolina.
Okay, Carolina. Yeah. And secondly, we totally should have talked about your wide receiver. Jalen McMillan, I think he's a sleeper. Everybody's sleeping on him. He was doing great in Washington until he got injured. Looked fantastic. I thought that was a great pickup. We could have talked about him and I'd have been happy about it.
It's a great pickup. He's automatically our 3rd wide receiver. He's going to be on the field a lot because we're going to play a lot less 2 tight end sets with our new offensive coordinator. I don't mind talking about him, but again, it's a 3rd round wide receiver. It's a guy we don't have to talk too much about. I'm excited to have him on the field. It's just he had an injury last year, so hopefully he comes back and is better this year. But it's kind of like Justin talked about with their 1st and 2nd round pick. It is definitely a high risk, high reward kind of guy. He was one of the top wide receivers at that school until he got hurt. So a school that produced really good wide receivers this year. So happy to have them. Getting back into the running backs, Jalen. So this is why I talk about spoilers. So Jonathan Brooks is going to spoil Miles Sanders, but nobody cared about Miles Sanders anyway, right? Like, it is what it is. He's definitely taking that backfield. Trey Benson is gonna in Arizona. And anybody who had the running back there, all of a sudden,
James Conner.
That's not great. Yeah, Connor. Sorry,
Yeah, James
Conner. Blake Corum. We talked about that with LA and Kyron. Marshawn Lloyd in Green Bay. I mean, Jalen Wright in Miami with A-Chain. Bucky Irving with White. Ray Davis in Buffalo. It's not. I was a big fan of Ray Davis going into the draft process, but like lot of these,
he's your accountant, right?
He is my accountant.
Yeah. Ray Davis, solid, smart dude.
He is. Basically all I see here is spoilers for anybody who had some dynasty hopes of not having a terrible committee. I see David shaking his head, so I want to let David talk.
I'm just looking through the list and considering a few that might have a shot at doing more than just being a spoiler. But I'm trying. There was so much recycling of running backs and trades of running backs. It's still hard to try to keep track of where everybody ended up. So like I'm looking at the list here, and I don't remember off the top of my head who the Chargers have currently, or
they have
Gus Edwards,
Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Okay.
They have the Baltimore backfield.
What about the Broncos?
Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
And McLaughlin.
Whoever that guy.
McLaughlin.
Yeah, see, Audric Estime was high rated until the he had that slow time in the 40, but he plays faster than that time. And Javonte, as much as I've liked him, has not been able to stay healthy and produce on a consistent basis. So I could see him getting some time. I mean, you never know with the Jets. I like Breece Hall, and I hope he stays healthy all year. He did last year, but Braylon Allen could be somebody who could spell him and get some time. But that goes to your point of just taking away from the lead guy. There's just not too many teams that have a lead, a solid number one anymore.
Yeah, most of these backfields are going to be splits. I think Jonathan Brooks is the clear winner in Carolina. Like, he's going to usurp Miles Sanders. He's going to that could be the word of the day also, Justin, if you'd like. He's going to usurp Chuba Hubbard. I thought honestly he would go to Dallas at 55. I thought that was a perfect pairing. There are reports out that a lot of teams had a first round grade on him prior to the ACL tear. Trey Benson in Arizona. I listen. We all know James Conner is there, but like historically, the running back position gets banged up a lot. James Conner has been banged up a lot. I think Benson will get a little bit of run. Blake Corum, I think 1A, 1B with him and Kyron Williams. I don't think outside of that, I don't see a lot of these guys playing significant roles outside of major injury, to be honest.
See, I'm still the most excited about literally the last running back drafted was Laue, and I think he has a clear shot if he goes in and he does because he looked great at the combine. He was running just as fast as the top guys. He's the best catching receiver in the draft, and we all know that's what teams like these days.
Yep.
I mean, and he has a clear shot at least challenging for that starting role, and literally the last running back off the board.
He won't challenge in Vegas for the starting role, but he will be probably the clear third down back there. I think that's the role. If I had to comp him to what kind of a role I think he's going to play, I think it's going to be more like the Darren Sproles role. Like, he's going to be in there in passing down situations. He'll be down in third down. He's not a very big dude. Durability is going to be a huge issue with him. So I'm not convinced that he has an opportunity to to be the starter there for Vegas, but I think he will play a very important role for that team. If I had to pick anybody who I thought could be a wild card to be a starter, it was 6th round going to the Chargers, Kamani Vidal. That's a guy who is built to carry the a full workload. Not a true 3-down back, but like he can carry the load. He's got the body and the frame for it, and he runs and he runs hard. He kind of reminds me a lot of Isaiah Pacheco. And if you look what's ahead of him in the Chargers, like J.K. Dobbins' history of not being able to be healthy, Gus Edwards, he was very healthy last year, but the year prior to that, he was not very healthy at all. So that's the one guy I would, late in our draft, I would take a flyer on him, but that's about it.
That's why I asked about the Chargers starters as well, because I saw him go there.
Yep.
Couple things I do want to mention is last year's draft darling going to the Jets, Abanaconda. He gets hurt here. They take 2 running backs. The Jets take 2 running backs in this draft. I'd be interested to see if Dallas could make a trade maybe and get somebody like Abanaconda, because go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. But not just the Jets, but I was actually going to say that with the Cardinals. Coach mentioned it in our Gilded chat about maybe they try to make a trade for Conner. I don't know necessarily that they're willing to trade away James Conner, but the Jets, or I mean the now that you've brought up the Jets, that's definitely a possibility. But if you look at the Cardinals roster, they've got Connor, and now they have Trey Benson. If they don't want to give up one of them, I know Michael Carter failed with the Jets, but everybody fails with the Jets. So it's not necessarily because it's Michael Carter so much. And then also they have Amari DiMercado, who, by the way, I think that SOB still owes me like $60 in fab money for that half a game he gave me. So, but anyway, so I mean, they can easily make a trade there for Michael Carter or DiMercado, in my opinion, as well.
Here, if you're looking for a Cowboys running back that's already on a team that they might be able to trade for, look at Seattle, Kenneth Walker. They spent a 2nd-round draft pick on him, and what did they do the very next season? They spent a 2nd-round draft pick on Zach Charbonnet. I think that
sucks,
you might. So he's got to be healthy. He's got to stay healthy. I'm not going to write him off after one rookie season where he's behind Kenneth Walker. But I think if you're looking to trade for a running back, that might be something that they could probably work and get done.
So then, who's Seattle playing?
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet and McIntosh. Charbonnet and McIntosh, that's going to be their running back core. They're not going to do that. There's no way. They're not going to leave themselves that short.
It's a long shot. That's why I was looking at somebody like Abanaconda, just because he showed some flashes before he got hurt, and now he's got guys that are just like him behind him. So why not go get something for him? I'm not saying any of this is going to happen.
Hey, Jerry Jones, the Colts have a Trey Sermon for you if you're interested.
So the Steelers have the best one available, because Najee Harris, they have 4 days to sign him to his 5th-year option, and there's been no talk about it at all. He's hit 1,000 yards every season, and we haven't had the best offensive line in the last 2 years. We have Jaylen Warren, who was arguably more electric in our offense than Najee Harris. If the Steelers don't want to sign him to that 5th-year option, they could trade him and still be fine going into the season with just Jaylen Warren.
Jaylen Warren, and you have 67-year-old Cordarrelle Patterson too.
Yeah. Right. The problem is Jerry Jones is going to look at how much he'd have to sign Najee Harris to after they trade for him. He's like, nah, I'm not spending that much on a running back.
That's true. I think it came in at like $5.2 million or something.
Yeah. So what I think and we're totally moving the goalpost this way, or we can move it this way. In honor of the Bills, we're going to move it to the right. So this is my right, but for you guys, it would be this way. We're going to move the goalpost to the right because that's the only way they can make a field goal when it matters. We said that they'll take a running back in free agency. They did not. Then we said, they have to draft a running back, and they did not. Now I think we're going to move the goalpost to they're going to take a running back and sign one when the teams have to do cut downs. When you got to get to the 53-man rosters, you'll find those like a Bonaconda, like a Michael Carter, maybe a Jeff Wilson from the Dolphins, maybe a Trey Sermon over there in Indianapolis. Those third and fourth string running backs that just aren't going to make the team, and that's where they'll end up signing a running back.
Either way, Rico Dowdle now, I mean, he kind of becomes the man. He's, the best that they have on the roster right now. So even if they bring somebody else in, they're going to have to earn the spot over him. So, I mean, unless it's a big name, obviously, but I don't see it happening now.
I don't see a big name. Don't see it.
Hey, so one other set of winners from this whole thing is Moss in Cincinnati.
Zach Moss, yep.
Zach Moss, they didn't take anybody. So you got Zach Moss there, you got Chase Brown. Those become winners.
All this got to do is hold off Chase Brown. That's a kid I liked a lot from the Senior Bowl 2 years ago.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, it'll be a split there for sure, but you were thinking the Bengals were going to go in and grab somebody, and they stayed out of it too. So Zach Moss looked good for the Colts last year when he had to play because of injuries to Taylor. So
I think we'll see more production out of those two together than we saw with just Mixon, and Mixon was underrated nearly every year.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I agree.
All right, guys, we did it. We got through watching the draft. We're not doing the tight end tonight. George,
I mentioned the one at the start of the show, and that's all that matters is the one.
we could talk about Brock Bowers going to the Raiders, and then that just killing any Meyer, and the Raiders being a totally unserious organization.
Well, I don't know. So here's the thing about Brock Bowers. Like I mentioned earlier, he's so versatile. He can block. He can run routes out of the slot. He doesn't have to play the traditional tight end position. I think he's going to be more of a Taysom Hill, only without the quarterback side, where we're going to see him as a gadget guy all over the field, and you're also going to see Mayer out there as your traditional tight end. I mean, obviously, this cuts into Mayer's production fantasy wise, but I still think that he gets plenty of opportunity to be on the field at the very least. It all made sense after I stopped to think about it. I was just fuming that night because one more pick later, my Colts were supposed to take them.
I'm not saying he's not a good player. I just think they had so many needs. The Raiders have so many needs, including
but he covers two of those needs because he can block better than half of their offensive line right now. And he can run routes out of the slot better than what they have right now.
You can't say that a tight end blocks better than the offensive line and then not go and address the offensive line, because I don't care how good a tight end blocks, he's still going to get run the hell over. So he's a good blocking tight end. He's a good helper on the line.
He didn't get run over very much in the SEC.
But you're also talking about him now being split out wide. Who's he blocking? A blitzing corner? Great.
He's also going to throw the ball to himself. He's that good.
I was going to say, when he's split out wide, obviously he's not blocking. But if he's in close to the line and they're in 12 personnel, it gives the Raiders options, because they can have both Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers on the field at the same time in 12 personnel. It was a problem, or people thought it would be a problem when New England had Gonzalez and Gronk, but when those two got on the field together, that was actually pretty good. You know what New England had at that point? An offensive line.
And Tom Brady.
I
totally get that. But it gives the Raiders more offensive options than what they had last year. And he is the best tight end to be drafted. Most people are saying that his potential is better than what Kyle Pitts was coming out, which is insane. If you remember how many people thought Kyle Pitts was the next coming, unfortunately, Kyle Pitts fell into they did hire the offensive coordinator from New England at one point, didn't they? So, yes, that's a factual statement. But it causes problems when you can go 12 personnel and you have two tight ends that can both catch the ball and both can block at the same time. Because now you don't know, okay, is the tight end coming in? Is he going to stay in the block? If he's not staying in the block and we got to cover him, who are we covering him with? Are you going to try to put a linebacker on Brock Bowers? That's not going to work. Are you going to cheat over the top with a safety? Okay, now you're leaving Devontae Adams one-on-one on the outside. Like, it creates problems having those type of players on the team. And I think, the Raiders are talented enough on the offensive side of the ball to where they can use his talent.
I'm thinking about changing my mind because I hate agreeing with George.
I think that I could kind of seal this all into a nice package. Brock Bowers would have been good on any team. He would have improved any team. I don't think it's an argument that Brock Bowers isn't going to help the Raiders. I think it's an argument that they had so many other needs that Brock Bowers wasn't the right pick at that spot. Like Fatanu was still there. A fantastic tackle. They could have used him. They just got Meyer last year. It's not that it's a bad pick. It's just there was so much else that they need because it doesn't matter if they have another weapon if their quarterback's running for their lives because they ain't got no offensive line.
It's a luxury.
I will say,
who's their quarterback going to be? What are they rolling in with right now? Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell?
Yeah, they still don't have a quarterback. That's the thing. Like, they don't care so much about the blocking right now. They're building the team around the quarterback position. Then they'll worry about their quarterback. They don't expect to win this year.
They did draft consensus number one center in the entire draft this year, Jackson Powers Johnson as well. And I will tell you right now that
which was insane.
How did he fall? If they put him at center, he struggles with snapping the ball and he causes penalties. Like those are the two things from a center you don't want is issues with snapping the ball and penalties.
According to their depth chart. Yeah, there you go. They've already moved him to right guard on their depth chart.
Yeah, if you put him at guard, he's a phenomenal guard as well. Like he could play multiple positions on the offensive line. So knowing a bigger picture that not only did they draft the best tight end, but they drafted the best center who can also has the versatility to play guard. Like they've also addressed their offensive line a little bit as well. And so I don't hate the move, to be honest. I think that, not everybody's going to have a top 5 offensive line across the board. So you got to do what you got to work with. And would they be in better position if they took a left tackle over a tight end? Probably. But long term, the potential, because like the Raiders ain't winning nothing this year. We all know this. But long term, adding a Brock Bowers to your line and then maybe next year getting a better offensive lineman, a better tackle will help the organization long term than taking a tackle this year and hoping you could find an offensive weapon like Brock Bowers next year, because there's not one in the draft next year at tight end that's as talented and causes as many problems as Brock Bowers does.
I'd be interested, and we don't have to do it tonight. I'd be interested in hit rates on tight ends versus left tackles, just like percentage wise, because
the left tackle is going to be higher. It's going to be higher because a lot more of them are drafted, especially in the first round.
Well, a lot of them fail too, but that's why I meant percentages and not like total number. But go ahead, David.
So I feel like with Jackson Powers Johnson moved to guard, that means that the most intriguing battle between rookies this year is who's going to be the top center, yours or mine? Because Zach Frazier and Graham Barton are both pushed in right now as centers.
Graham Barton's going to play guard. I don't think he's going to play center.
They have him as a center on the Bucs depth chart right now.
Yeah, he's a center on the depth chart.
Yeah.
All right. So what were you wanting to look at? Here's the first round hit rates.
Tight ends versus tackles.
So offensive tackles at 59%, tight ends at 33%. But also first round tight ends are not taken very often.
Exactly.
For a reason. And he doesn't play as a tight end most of the time.
But I mean, it is what it is. Like you just compared him to Kyle Pitts, who we would all say is a failure, even though he came out as an incredible tight
I
end.
wouldn't say he's a failure. He set the rookie record for receiving yards for a tight end his rookie season. I wouldn't say that's a failure. I would say that the coaching staff made him a failure. I don't think it was a Kyle Pitts issue. I think it was an offensive coach who wants to get the ball to Jonnu Smith in situations over Kyle Pitts. I think that's the problem. I don't think the problem is Kyle Pitts is not a good tight end.
Hey guys, my dogs are starting to go crazy in there. I'm tired of agreeing with George. Just doesn't happen. It's not supposed to happen. So I'm gonna get off of here. But appreciate you guys having me on. You guys have a great evening.
See you,
Every
Justin.
night.
Earlier when we were talking about
Taco Bell.
You
Yes,
mean
sir.
his tea and biscuits?
Yeah, my
Yes.
DoorDash is almost here.
Tea and crumpets.
Tea and
Oh.
crumpets.
Hey, look at that. Actually, it is here. Hey, can you let the dog down? Thanks. All right.
So earlier,
I'm good.
I'm pretty sure you guys were, when we were talking about the Falcons, you guys were saying who was in on the decision making for Michael Penix? Were you guys saying Arthur Smith?
I was blaming
No,
Arthur
we're saying
Smith,
Arthur
yes.
Blank. No, it's Arthur
Yeah,
Blank.
but you guys were saying Arthur Smith, and I was so
saying-
confused.
I was saying Arthur Smith on purpose. I was
Okay,
saying it
okay.
on purpose. I know he is the offensive coordinator for your Steelers. I absolutely know that. But I was blaming him because it just feels like if anything goes wrong with the Falcons, that's the guy to blame.
Well, hopefully he left that there in Atlanta.
Can we all silently judge whatever Justin's choices were from Taco Bell?
I had to mute him because he kept ruffling the bag.
I think I saw a Mexican pizza come out of there.
I mean, if it's a Mexican pizza, that's upper
No, that's
echelon Taco Bell right there.
No, that's we should draft Taco Bell.
No, we
but that
should
is
just
like
draft fast food. Just fast food items in general.
That's like the 9th thing I saw come out of that box. What the Jesus, Justin.
Tina always laughs at me because I'm very simple with my food. I don't need all the bells and whistles. So when she goes to Taco Bell, all the kids order, whatever they specifically want, and I just tell her get a Taco 12 pack, and she's like, "For you," and I'm like, "Yes, just bring me the Taco 12 pack. I'll eat all of them."
It wasn't all mine, Jason.
It all went on that desk in front of you. Did you get a Mexican pizza? Yes or no?
No, that was my son's.
Oh, okay. Well,
Your
he
son
has
has
better taste.
Yeah, your
One
son
of the
has
other
exquisite
things that
taste.
I saw that we were going to talk about was draft winners and draft losers, and I know we hit on all the fantasy relevant things, but I'd just like to say about the Eagles getting both of those cornerbacks,
Oh God!
probably the top 2 quarterbacks in the league or in the draft, was fantastic for them. I mean, astonishing. And I know you're mad that Brock Bowers got taken, but Latu's a very nice. No, wait, that was Seattle that got Latu, wasn't it?
No,
Yeah,
it was.
Seattle got him.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Oh,
I
I
get
get them
Seattle
mixed
or
up.
you guys.
I get them mixed up.
Who'd you get in the first round?
I can't remember how to say his name.
What
Yeah,
position does he play?
It was Latu. That's what I thought.
That's what I thought. I
When
thought it was Latu. Yeah,
it was
he was
Latu.
my favorite defender in the entire class. So
Yeah, if his neck can stay fused.
yeah, your
He'll be
team
fine.
seems to like to take people who are who are injury prone.
Yeah.
This is good TV.
None of the viewers have left yet, so I mean, screw it. I'm starving.
I was going to try and keep this thing
God.
going for another 2 more hours, see if we could make Justin's food cold.
My no, I'm gonna eat while I'm talking. My so my winners were the Cardinals. So I get part of it is because they had 46 picks in this draft, but they did really well with their picks. They didn't waste a single one of them. They hit a lot of their team needs. Obviously, it helps to get Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round. It helps to have 2 first-round picks. They got Darius Robinson. But the Trey Benson pick was huge, and I was shocked that the Cowboys didn't make a run at him earlier. But and then, like I said, they just filled a ton of needs that they needed later in the draft, especially safety, offensive line. They've got some more wide receiver help on top of Marvin Harrison Jr. because they went out and got Palmer from UAB later on. So I think it was a solid draft for the Cardinals.
Well, yeah, anytime you have 12 picks and you don't screw them up, right? Like they made smart choices with the 12 picks they had. So, George, do you have a clear-cut winner?
Yeah, the Dolphins. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, I like what they did, but no, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. They got, like I said, one of the top 2 cornerbacks in this draft, and they got Terrion Arnold. He was the first cornerback off the board. Definitely position of need. So much of a position of need, they double tapped that position in the second round and took Ennis Rankstraw Jr., 61 overall. So I absolutely love that. Shore up the outside because that defense is already good. They've got a phenomenal defense. These guys are going to come in and help it. Then they addressed offensive tackle and a running back in the fourth round. And then Makai Wingo, who I think is an underrated defensive tackle, and Christian Mahogany. I just like the last name Mahogany, to be honest. In the 6th round. Hurdy's solid is what I'm being told. It's in the air. The producers are telling me he's a solid guy. So I like what Detroit was able to do, especially at the top end of the draft, double tapping cornerback and then taking up a couple guys with some high upside in Wingo and Mahogany.
Yeah, Arnold, Rankstraw, and Wingo are all 3 guys that I wanted the Colts to take the round that they ended up going. So I agree with you.
Quick correction. Arnold was the 2nd cornerback off the board. Quinion Mitchell went 2 picks beforehand.
Okay. That's right.
And that was amazing that they were able to stay there because they were one of the teams most rumored to move up for a cornerback. Yep. So the fact that they were able to get him and then they did move up for Cooper DeJean, who could play as a safety if they have too much at cornerback, which they don't really. I mean, they have a couple of old guys. We'll see what they could do. The thing I liked about the Lions draft is they were in a kind of position where they could just draft for luxury. They didn't have a whole lot of holes on paper, which is why they were able to do, what they did and just pick up the best players available when they were on the board.
Well, I do like the thing I liked about the Lions was jumping up ahead of Green Bay, who definitely would have taken the corner, right? Like
for sure they would have.
That was the move, right? Like they jumped up, traded with Dallas. Actually, kind of hurt Dallas because I think they would have been happy to take Graham Barton. They thought they could get him. They traded back, and when Green Bay saw that was Detroit, man, I bet you their hearts sank. My winners, I mean, look, I like what the Steelers did, especially early. 2 really solid offensive linemen, then a wide receiver. Let's see. Look, the Chargers, everybody thought they should have got one of the big 3, and they went and got Alt, and everybody was like, okay, I get it. Jim Harbaugh's going to run the ball. You take Alt, but then you worry about what wide receiver was going to be left, and then the Bills, the 49ers, the Patriots all gave the Chargers a gift in leaving Ladd McConkey there for him. So I think, given that they didn't take one of the big 3 early, being able to turn around and in the 2nd round getting Ladd McConkey, I think that was a big push for the Chargers who were desperate for wide receivers. So I think they did really well too. I think those are the 2, look, other than the Bucs, who I love because they're the Bucs, I do think both the Steelers and the Chargers made themselves better with their picks. So I like that a lot.
And I like what Harbaugh. Go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I like what Harbaugh said about Joel when they asked if he was talking about how Joel is an offensive weapon. Like I think that's how we should look more at these offensive linemen. Is they're big guys. They don't catch the ball. They don't really run the ball, but if you have a couple of good ones, they are absolute studs. They are definitely offensive weapons.
Yeah, I was going to say that Josh Palmer, when healthy, is a very efficient wide receiver. So very explosive too. And then Quentin Johnston was a pretty highly touted rookie. Now, he had a subpar rookie season. He had a little bit of injury issues, but they had high expectations for him. And then now they have Ladd. I wouldn't doubt to see the Chargers make another move, whether it be a trade before the deadline midseason or maybe another free agent pickup, even though there really aren't a lot of wide receiver free agents out there. But I can see them making another move early in the season to make a trade to try to get an actual number one wide receiver there too.
I don't think they will, just based off of Harbaugh's history. He wants to just run the ball. They brought in Greg Roman from the Ravens, known for being an offensive coordinator that just wants to pound the rock. I think the days of us seeing Justin Herbert throw for 400 yards on a consistent basis are done. I think the days of us seeing him throw for over 300 on a consistent basis is done. I think that team is really gonna surprise a lot of people, and how much they actually want to run the ball, because that's Harbaugh especially. That's what he did in Michigan. That's what he did when he was with the 49ers. Like, that is 100% his MO. Is pounding the rock. So I don't think they're going to go out and trade future assets for a true number one wide receiver. That's not his MO.
I agree with you on the end where they're going to run the ball like crazy. But even if they are the number one rushing team in the league, they're going to find out that they still need wide receivers when they need the wide receivers. And they're already going to know that. Like, I feel like they know, even if they're not going to use their wide receivers very often, they still need them to be efficient. And that's why I commented on Joshua Palmer's efficiency, because even though they're going to be underutilized, they need to be efficient when they are utilized. We don't know that we're getting that with Quentin Johnston because we didn't see him on the field enough. We don't know that we're going to get that with Ladd yet because we haven't seen him in the NFL. Unless they're both super efficient, it's just not going to work. You're going to need another guy in there alongside Joshua Palmer, because he's not a number one wide receiver, even if you're only throwing the ball 25% of the plays.
I do want to throw out one more team that I think ended up being a winner. Unless David wanted to jump in, you kind of opened your mouth there. If you wanted to jump in on that part of the conversation,
I hate to compliment the Ravens ever, but I like what the Ravens did in their draft too. And their first pick has me super excited. I can't wait to see George Pickens versus Nate Wiggins. That dude can fly. And I mean, he's just a freak athlete, and so is George Pickens. So I think that's going to be one of the, when they face each other, that's going to be a bang bang kind of matchup there. I'm super excited about that. But they went and got Roger Rosengarten, who some people had him being able to sneak into the first round, and they took him all the way back at 62. Adisa Isaac, I saw him going in late first round, early second. They got him, late in the third, and then they got a receiver, Tez Walker, who, he wasn't obviously one of the top 10 or anything, but he was pretty good with Drake May. So.
Well, you didn't even mention TJ Tampa.
Yeah,
TJ Tampa, which, look, I saw mock drafts with him in the first. I have no idea why that dude fell. He must have some medical stuff that we don't know about, because I had we saw mock drafts with him going in the first and the second, and next thing you know, he's in the fourth. So that they were sneaky good
versus TJ Tampa.
Minnesota, I'll say Minnesota also was a winner here, because there were a lot of pre-draft talk. I missed it. I wanted to. Justin just housed the rest of that burrito. George is muted. So there was a lot of pre-draft talk about the Vikings having to trade 23 to go up and get JJ McCarthy. Trade 11 and 23. They stayed pat at 11. Then they turned around. They did trade 23 to move up a little bit and get one of the best defenders off the board. So I think, they didn't have to give up a lot. They stayed where they were. They got their quarterback. Even if you're not a fan of the quarterback, they didn't have to give up 23 to move up to take the quarterback they wanted, and there was a lot of pre-draft talk that they were going to have to do that. So I think that makes them a winner as well.
Here's why they're a loser. I do like, and I'm a JJ McCarthy fan. However, their future assets that they gave up, they have a first-round pick and 2 fifth-round picks next year, and that's it right now. They gave up everything else that they had in their trades between the pre-draft and in the draft itself. So that's the only reason I consider that a losing class, so to speak. It doesn't give them a winning grade in my book. They gave up the 3rd and the 4th next year to move up to 17 to take Dallas Turner. They gave up the house basically. They're going all in, which is kind of crazy when you have JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold. You don't know what you have at quarterback yet.
All right. Well, so I think we covered winners. Does anybody want to talk about losers? I know we'll probably all consider the Falcons losers. We'll probably consider Denver. Yeah, Denver losers. Reading through some of the articles, the 49ers seem to be a favorite to be losers with like Purcell taking in the first round. I've seen Dallas being considered a loser because they traded back and they lost out on Graham Barton and didn't take a running back. Anybody else aside from that group there?
Not a huge fan of what Buffalo did either. But we already talked about a lot of that. Yep.
Justin?
Cleveland doesn't really impress me either. I don't think they did a very good job in the draft.
Yeah, and it's a little hard when your first pick is until 54th. But
yeah,
even
but
then,
it serves them right.
Agreed.
Yeah, they deserve that.
George,
I'm not really impressed with what the Jets did, and that's got nothing to do with them being an AFC East rival either. Like I like them taking Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State at 11. I like the fact that they traded back and still were able to get him, even though it was only 1 pick. And they got a lot of future draft capital. But I think we could all agree that running back was not really a position of need for the Jets, and they drafted 2 of them. They took Braylon Allen in the 4th, and then they went ahead and selected Isaiah Davis in the 5th. Quarterback, you can kind of understand why they would draft a quarterback, but taking Florida State's Jordan Travis in the 5th round, I get it's a very high upside pick with him coming off of his injury that he had last year, being able to sit. Hopefully, if you're the Jets or a Jets fan, hopefully he'll sit the whole year behind Aaron Rodgers and be able to learn from him. And that's the quarterback of the future that you got in the 5th round. Because I do like him. I think he's a talented quarterback, but just overall, not a huge fan of what they did. Like they took a wide receiver in the 3rd round, Malachi Corley. They took him at pick 65, and I want to look real quick at our list here.
He was a projected 2nd rounder for a lot of people.
I think so. I like Malachi Corley as a receiver. But like Roman Wilson went 84. I would much prefer Roman Wilson.
Oh yeah.
I would much prefer Troy Franklin. I would much prefer Jermaine Burton, who went at 80. Like and this is just me personally, and obviously I'm not an NFL scout. I don't work for the Jets organization. They don't care really what my opinion is on their draft, but just me personally, those are guys I think are going to turn out to be better wide receivers than what the Jets took at 65.
Yeah, I also, we can lump the Patriots in here too, right? Yeah, obviously they got their quarterback. I do think they took the wrong wide receiver in the 2nd round to go with him. They got a tackle. That's okay. They needed that for sure. And they got a guard. But it's just like, and again, they got Baker, and I'm okay with that too. But I don't know, man. It just feels like when you're that high in the draft, you probably should have done better than they did, and it just feels like when Drake might not even be the right quarterback. I know he was the only guy left, but if that's the guy you got, I don't know. And no, we can't hear your dogs barking, Justin.
All right.
You
Well, I'm
sent
glad
it
I
in the
left that
private
in the
chat,
private chat.
That's fine. Listen, we show people how we make the sausage around here. So
That's disturbing.
all right, guys. Anything else from anybody else before we close out the night? I'm gonna give this is one last call. It's 11:28 now.
I also
did a
think
2-hour show.
As far as the Patriots go, they should have, especially when they decided to go and pick up Joe Milton later on. They already have Jacoby Brissett. They should have just gone into the season. They could have traded back, filled so many holes, going back from the 3, picked up Joe Milton, and if it didn't work out, they'd still be picking high next year. You have Jacoby Brissett, you have Joe Milton. I mean, to me, that would be worth the risk and getting more assets, or even just taking Marvin Harrison Jr. in that spot instead, and being able to use your second-round pick on not Jalen Polk. They just had so many options, and I feel like they kind of just patrioted their way through the draft.
I think they should have traded back as well. The problem with doing had they went with Marvin Harrison Jr. is that he would have brought just enough to that offense to keep them from having a top 5 pick next year. But they still would have been bad. But I think the idea to trade back would be that it would help them to continue to have a top 5 pick next year to get that quarterback. So, yeah, I agree with you,
man. The idea of Joe Milton throwing bombs to Marvin Harrison Jr. gives me tingles. So,
well, we can't see it now.
All right, guys. That is going to wrap up our show for this evening. We gave you about 2 hours of draft coverage, which is, it's a Sunday night. The draft is over. Some of you degenerates are just here because you're like, I need a little bit more of that NFL draft. I think the next big thing for NFL, I know it's some cut downs, but I think the NFL schedule release is coming up, and the NFL does a good job now of making it so it's NFL all the time. There's always something to talk about. The NFL, they used to just like put the NFL schedule in the newspaper and you just take a look at it and go, okay. And now it's like a 3-night event that, they bring stars out to announce them. And I don't know, it's crazy. The NFL does a great job of being front and center all the time. So that's the next one. I do want to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/toiletstitles. I always say that we have a tier for every salary. We have the low down tier all the way up to the George will come cook you dinner tier. And then he'll use your bathroom, and then you'll pay us more to get rid of George. So that's the tier you want to avoid, I'm sure. But he'll even read you a bedtime story.
Now I want to know what the menu is, because if he comes here cooking beans on toast, I don't know.
I'm starting with steak. We're right off the rip. We're cooking steak.
I taught him how to cook steak, so it's good.
That's absolutely not true.
It absolutely is true, and it's true. It's true because when
I will not stand here for these lies. We don't lie to the people around here, okay?
I know for a fact it's true, because for a decade before I met you, you never ate steak. And then you asked me, how do I cook a ribeye? And I walked you through it.
That is not true. I listen, I'm telling the truth. I went a whole decade without eating steak because my parents didn't know how to cook it. But I have YouTube University, and they showed me how to cook it, and now I kind of like it.
YouTube University.
Anyway, so getting back to Patreon, we have tiers at $9.99, $14.99, and $24.99. And that's what I mean. At $9.99, even if you work at someplace like a McDonald's or whatever, like, you can afford $9.99. Those guys are getting like $15 an hour now. So that's cool.
Justin spent more than that on his Taco Bell.
Oh, for sure. Justin spent more than that on having somebody deliver his Taco Bell. What a time to be alive! You can have Taco Bell delivered to the house while you're doing a podcast.
It was my son. He just got off work.
So speaking of Patreon, one of the things we do is there are Patreon exclusive leagues. So while this might be the only draft stuff we have for a while, we do have our Patreon IDP League rookie draft next Saturday, and we will be live for that at 9 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. Eastern. Yep.
So if you want to see your first rookie draft for Dynasty, we're going to do all 7 rounds, and then it's IDP as well. So,
and then Wicked is doing the 32 league tournament type thing where it's 32 12-team leagues. The top prizes are upward of around $4,000 or something like that. So if we get them all filled, so make sure you're reaching out to @ToylisToTitles and asking about those leagues. And then also I have my 32 team league that's only $10. I feel like if I can get like 4 or 5 more, then we'll just play it where everybody gets an AFC and an NFC team because I'm having trouble filling that league. But I'm hoping to get 32 teams in there, or at least 16, and we each get 2 teams. But that half of that goes to Break from the Grind charities that Jason and George do, raising money for Toys for Tots in their county in Florida. So, yeah.
And then have to mention, the Frankenstank, as usual, listener league, craziest rule of any league I've ever been a part of. It's also the most fun league I've ever been a part of. And then there's a Frankenstein for Frankenstank. And
it's the newest addition to the household. My dad gave that to me yesterday.
I wanted to mention that as well, the Frankenstank. And then obviously we got to talk about Gilded one more time. It's our chat where you can talk to us all the time.
Looking for a place to connect with fellow fantasy football fanatics? Well, look no further than our Gilded server. Join the Title Tribe where you can chat, strategize, and debate about all things football. Whether you're swapping lineup advice, discussing the latest trades, or fearlessly defending your favorite player, our Gilded server is the perfect spot to hang out with like-minded fans. Our Gilded server is free to join, and the link can be found in the video description or on our website at toiletstotitles.com. We look forward to seeing you in the tribe.
All right, so as he just said, catch us over on Gilded. And with that, guys, George, David, Justin, I appreciate you giving me 2 hours tonight to talk draft. I'm going to go hit the bed. I didn't get Taco Bell, so I might have a snack, but maybe Justin can send some of that my way next time.
I think it's about time.
I'll send my DoorDash right now, but you're not going to like his delivery fee.
It'll be a while. It'll be a while. All right, y'all. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody have a good night, and we will see you Tuesday night on the main show.
Reach out to us for a sponsorship, Taco Bell.